Well, welcome back. We've now got three colleagues going to join us to talk more about the Portsdown with an informal Q&A and also about Ryde, or I guess anything else almost that these guys can do. So it's great to welcome back Dave, G8GKQ, as well as Noel, G8GTZ, and Tim, MW0RUD. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Morning.
So we've got a few things, and I promised a minute ago that we would cover some of the questions that we didn't finish in Dave's talk. I'll start with Tom. I'm not sure of your call or surname, Tom, but you said, since Portsdown uses mini tuner hardware for reception and the lifespan of the current available tuner module seems to be at their end, is there any plans for future reception projects? So who's going to take that?
Okay, I'll pick this one up. So, as Tom rightly said, I think we've not made any secret of the fact that the CERET 4473 tuner that we use on the mini tuner board is end of life at CERET. And we were given the opportunity to buy a quantity at the end of last year, and we did buy 400. We're gradually working our way through them in the shop. And my first appeal would be to the 150 people that are watching, please don't hoard them. If you've got more than 3 mini tuners on the shelf, you've probably got too many, because basically you're making them not available for other members of the ATV community. So that would be my first plea. Why would anybody need more than that? They're incredibly reliable, so we don't think we're going to see any failures. And so we would encourage people not to hoard them. We've got a couple of hundred left in the shop, but after that, we need another solution. And we have, to use that horrible phrase, reached out to the ATV community to see if people will develop or, are happy to look at developing. The problem we've got is finding a NIM or a tuner that we can work on. The great thing about the CERET tuner is that it uses a certain chipset whose registers are programmable, and it can do low symbol rates. The difficulty is finding another NIM or tuner with silicon in it that enables that, and generally just looking at the data sheet on a tuner doesn't really cut it. The problem we've got is, of course, we're trying to use it out of specification. The DVB-S2 specification only goes down to 1 megasymbol, and so manufacturers are not really in, there's no onus on the manufacturers to do lower than 1 megasymbol. So we are aware of the problem. We're putting effort in to try and resolve the problem, but we don't have an answer yet. There was, Dave and I were talking the other night, actually, there was a tuner or a set-top box that some of our community found. I think the Bristol area people probably found it. And we believe that would go down to 500 kilosymbols. We'd be quite interested in seeing a copy of that box to see if we can identify what the silicon is in its side. So that's where we are. We do have adequate stocks as long as people aren't hoarding them, and the reliability has been 100%. So we don't see a need to really replace them in the future, but we just need support from everybody to try and find a new solution going forward. So, that's as good an answer as we've got at the moment.
Kind of a similar question, but to do with the actual computers and the shortages of Raspberry Pis rather than the tuners. Mike Willis has said, might seem like a silly question, but why not move towards a low power Linux PC, a small form factor, in place of the Pi for future development? I recognise power consumption is likely to be higher and the lack of GPIO would need a solution as well. Any thoughts on that? Tim, maybe?
Well, from a Ryde perspective, they're fairly dependent.
We're going to bring you up in a moment. Sorry, there we go. Oh, we've lost Tim, I think, actually, off the call. Sorry about that. I don't know whether either of you, Dave or Noel, can you help on that? There's a just looking at the idea of moving away from the Raspberry Pi. Is that something that's realistic, or because the Raspberry Pi hopefully will come online next year, it's not so much?
It's certainly realistic. The problem is supporting many hardware platforms. The great thing about a Raspberry Pi is we know what we're getting and we know what we're trying to support. Ryde software and Portsdown software will work on a smaller Linux PC, but then the moment you start looking at peripherals like controlling PTT, using an infrared remote control and so on, you get into this great world of unknowns in that everybody's got a different solution. So and Tom has proved how portable a lot of the software is from one platform to another, but you just need that extra little bit of knowledge to change the software, recompile it, and make it work on the new platform. So its supportability is really the key problem there. But there is no reason why, if we could find a new Linux platform that we knew was going to be available and supported for the next 5 years, we could move to it. But actually, isn't that a Raspberry Pi?
Yeah, indeed. And as you said in your talk, Dave, then the Raspberry Pi, it's a as temporary as any of these things can be in terms of the chip shortage, but it does look like they'll be more available next year. So that may not be so much of a problem. Thanks for that. Over on BATC now, HS1JAN says, "Hi Dave, I used Lime SDR Mini V1 with Raspberry Pi 3 with Portsdown software, but I have a problem to have Portsdown software not play the .ts file to bring the VDO. I use HD converter to convert MP4 to TS. It has HD 1080p conversion and SD 720p, but it doesn't work on Portsdown. Any ideas?"
Right, the playing TS files, when it works, it works. When it doesn't work, it's very difficult to find out why. But generally, the problem is a TS file has to be the right bit rate. So we've got this sort of set bit rate that you can fit in your video signal. For 333 kilosymbols, it's about 440 kilobits per second. So first of all, the TS file has to play out at that rate. Then the TS file has to have the right metadata in it. So it has to have all the metadata about each component of the stream. And I suspect your particular problem is that your encoding software doesn't put the right metadata in. The thing to do as a test is to generate a TS file from a Portsdown, record it. Now, I know that's not easy. The way to do it is to take a TS stream, run it over UDP, record it, and then replay it back and see whether you can replay your own TS file. Or possibly a TS file you get off air. You can record TS files using Minitune, and they play back okay. So start with a TS file that you know that works, and then try and replicate that in your own TS file recorder.
Okay, Dave, thank you. Sorry, we're just looking at some of those. There's lots of questions coming in, which is great. Remember, BATC or Zoom messaging will get them to us. Rob.au, so I guess that means you're in Australia, Rob. You said, although Portsdown is a wonderful solution, which is great all-round tool set, Raspberry Pis have been proven difficult to source, and Jets and Nanos are expensive. PC and laptop hardware are so plentiful, and I'm sure that most stations have a spare machine. Is there any consideration of Portsdown on PC using Linux for at least transmitting? Elgato Camlink should also work better on a PC hardware, and I guess that's really more or less what you've just answered regarding the Linux. Sorry, that just came in, and I will
come in with one comment there. On the transmit side, there is now DATV Easy, which you'll hear about from Benno this afternoon, as a way of transmitting using a PC. And there is a very good solution there. We're using an Elgato HDMI capture into OBS, into DATV Easy, and that provides a Windows-based solution. So that is there. And we are just doing some initial scoping work on perhaps a better receive solution for a PC than Minitune software. So we're looking at whether there are alternatives there for a PC-based solution. So, yep, we're exploring all these options and trying to make things easy.
Thanks. I'm not sure if this is going to help with any availability issues, but it's another suggestion about looking at different code. This time from Rob, VK3EHT, who says, have you thought about coding in Rust? The new C and C++ adds benefits on security and memory optimization.
I have thought about it. Security is not too much of an issue we see, because we rely on the operating system and the fact that we are not exposed to the internet for our security. Security in the software applications are open to the LAN. That is the principle of Portsdown. And my trouble is it's a new language, and old dog and new tricks comes to mind.
Totally understand. Well, it's another shout out for the community though, of course, because those suggestions I'm sure are welcome. Help is as welcome, if not more so. So, if you can help with any of these projects, I know that Dave and the whole team, Noel and Tim, who I'm afraid we still haven't got back, I'm not quite sure. I think he might have a local problem there. And all of the team and like Tom, always welcome and open to suggestions and offers of help as well. Lots of thanks and everything to you as well, Dave, by the way, on your previous talk. Nigel2E0EHH says, when using PD4, I connected Minitune. It does not see it when I press RX. Any idea, please?
The one thing I would suggest is go to the file menu that I demonstrated and see if you get the FTDI up listed in the USB. It sounds like a USB connection problem to me.
Okay, thank you. Right, I'm just seeing which we can take next. Nicholas Grundy, what is the minimum memory required in the Pi 4 for Winter Hill and Portsdown 4?
Portsdown 4, it is 1 gigabyte. The memory use on a Portsdown 4 is generally around 250 megabytes, somewhere in that region. So 1 gigabyte Portsdown 4s work fine. Winter Hill, I would go for one of the larger ones, but I'm not sure what the exact limit is. I don't know whether anybody else has any ideas. Somebody on the chat might actually be able to answer that for Winter Hill. I see Tim's coming back in. That's good.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be able to welcome back Tim in a moment. He's just going to make the connection. Meantime, Tom has said, I'm sorry I don't have a call sign or surname, Tom. If you can, when you go onto Zoom or BATC, if you can put either your call sign, or if you don't have one, or you'd rather not, just put your surname. It will help us to differentiate between people. Tom says, which BATC projects are in most need of software developers, keeping in mind not to step on any toes or interfere? Do you have any ideas of that? Are any of you waiting for sort of particular help on something that you'd appreciate?
Should we let Noel answer that one?
Yes, I think the answer to that is pretty much anything you feel you can contribute. We've never been known to turn people down. Dave has, I think Dave has done a marvellous job supporting the Portsdown for 6 years, and he's always open to help. I think what Tom is doing down in South Africa is amazing, because he's coming up with new ideas. We've had Phil and Heather in the background, and so it's very much a collaborative team. Everything is open. Everything is on GitHub, so you can start a fork and experiment. And if you think what you've been doing is worthy of putting in, feel free to do that. So I think the answer is everywhere. And if you've got some ideas of stuff we ought to be doing, which we hadn't thought of yet, by all means chip in. Most of the stuff we talk about, the Portsdown, the Ryde, were all generated generally over a couple of pints of beer. and throwing ideas around, and we went away and refined it. And so, any ideas that you've got on your own, we're more than happy to listen to and can support through the BATC bursary project. We can fund licenses and developer platforms. And so if there's something you think that could be contributed, just let us know. And on that point, I wonder we ought to consider whether we support Tom getting an Apple app developer license. That would be something we should be looking at, and if it's a financial constraint. So no, we're open to anything, and no idea will be turned away. And I don't think there's much risk of treading on people's toes.
If I could just come in, David.
Absolutely, yes.
From my perspective, what I would welcome with open arms is somebody who comes in with a new idea for how we could make the project do something extra or better, and a concept of how it would be implemented. Not so much, not necessarily how to code it, but how it would work, and some ideas about what software would do it. So it's a broad spectrum, from writing the software, the actual code, all the way up to the idea of wouldn't it be good if. So please throw those ideas at us, and we will try and bring people into the community to try and make these things happen.
Indeed, Dave, thank you. It's all about collaboration and helping one another, isn't it? Now, Tim, by the way, you're there on our call, but you're muted and we can't see a picture. Just to let you know, update you. Oh, we can see your picture now as well. So, Tim, if you unmute as well, then we can probably hear you as well. One moment, I think he's saying. Okay, we'll come back to you in a moment. Clive Reynolds asks, could the Pluto be supported by Portsdown repeater in the future?
I've shied away from it from the point of view of reliability, because people have had reliability problems with Pluto. We are getting to the stage where we understand those. So I think the answer to that has got to be yes. But I'm hesitating because of the reliability issues. Once I get confidence in that, the answer is yes.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Still trying to help out Tim here, but without saying. Oh, Tim, you're there now, I think, and we can.
Yes,
and we can hear you. Just it'd be nice to bring you in the conversation anyway, so everybody at home can see you. I'm sure everybody's aware of all the work you've done. I don't know if you've been able to hear the last 10 minutes or so to know what we've been talking about. Oh, good. Have you got anything that you'd like to add onto that? We were coming to you, I think, for answer. Is there anything you'd like to add?
The thought that when my computer crashed, I was just going to say that a lot of the Ryde stuff has been designed for the Raspberry Pi, but it's not beyond the realms to reconfigure it so it's not so reliant on any Linux computer will run. But yeah, it does require adjusting how the graphics works mostly, and then if people want infrared remotes and things, then obviously you've got to find some way of getting that into a computer.
Anything to add on that, Noel or Dave? Maybe they can't hear me. Can you hear me? Either of you? Dave?
Oh, yeah, we can hear you, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's
we
okay.
had nothing to add.
Nothing to add. That's absolutely fine. Ian G8XZD says, there are hints on the DATV Express website that they may have a new tuner for their next generation receiver. Whether that will work, though, for BATC is another matter, but might be worth contacting Charles or Art.
Yeah, we have been talking to them on and off over the years on this, and Charles is involved in our search for the new tuner, but we haven't had anything that's a positive lead yet. Okay,
thanks, Dave. Nigel 2E0EHH says, when the Sunday WWNet is transmitting, can we stream it live on the BATC stream? Because that would be helpful, he suggests.
It just needs somebody to do it. The technology is easy. It just needs somebody to do it.
Okay, I think
there is actually a streaming channel set up already on the server for it. If somebody wants to volunteer to do it, we'll send them the stream key.
In fact, we've got an answer as well. This is a lovely thing about doing this sort of thing live. Tom, PA3FBX, says that Benno already streams on BATC for the WWNet, in fact. So I guess you'll find that under his stream, maybe, on there.
Yeah, sounds like.
Okay. Paul G6MNJ says GB3NQ uses a Pluto 12 hours a day and has proven extremely reliable at 1.5 mega MSS. Is that megacycles per second? No, mega. Anyway, maybe it's symbol bits. We also use a USB Ethernet connection to the Pluto, which again I keep hearing is a no-no, but experience has proved otherwise. Any thoughts on that?
I'm really pleased to hear, Paul, that that's proved reliable. What we have found is that the USB Ethernet connection, assuming your network is good, is more reliable. And specifically, powering the Pluto from external power socket increases the reliability. So really pleased to hear that it's proving reliable, and I'll add that to pushing the Pluto up the priority list.
Thanks. Yeah, and actually, Mike G0LGF, in partial response to that as well, has said that Pluto has a hardware fault with a PSU. Analog know about this. Analog Devices, I guess that is the company. But it disconnects from a PC as it pleases, especially on power surges, and hopefully that's helpful. We haven't got too many other questions here, which is fine because we're coming up to our sort of an informal lunch where everybody who's on the Zoom call will be able to join, and I'll tell you a bit more about that in a moment. Another question here, though. David M0YDH comes in and says, are there any plans to include Quick Tune in Ryde?
I have thought about including maybe Band Viewer, which would be a first step towards doing that kind of quick tune features, but I'm not quite sure how full quick tune, how you'd interact with it to actually select the things. Maybe if people have ideas, they can file an issue on the GitHub about how you might think you would interact and select the things. But yes, it's very. I've thought about adding the viewer, and so then people can then select them.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Just reading some of these associated with this. The Paul G6MNJ says the Pluto's on an external PSU at just under 5 volts, which I believe is the key. So keeping the voltage down, I guess. Maybe it's got either a regulator or a DC-DC converter or something like that in it, which makes that more stable. Let me see, there was another question about that in a moment ago. Dave M5TXJ on BATC says that my Pluto has been bulletproof since the diode mod. So I guess that's well publicised, is it, Dave? You're nodding your head?
Yeah, the diode mod is putting a power Schottky diode in the 5-volt supply line, which takes the supply voltage on the Pluto down to about 4.8 or 4.9 volts. I had some correspondence with Robin Getz, who was involved in the Pluto design and development. Unfortunately, he's now left Analog Devices. And he said the Pluto was designed for a power supply range of 4.5 to 5.5 volts. But the fact that the the separate power socket was more reliable came out of the conversation with him. And I think probably the way to go is to power it with 4.9 volts from the external power socket, and then you get the reliability.
Yeah, that's certainly been borne out by several people commenting. Forgive me if I don't read your actual comment up, but that does seem to be consistent with what people have experienced. In fact, Paul says again after that they use a dedicated 1 gigabit switch or 1 GB switch for the network traffic, which also helps, I think. Tom ZR6TG says, I've started hacking a quick tune into Ryde for myself, and I'll get in touch with you, Tim, direct. So that may help.
Yeah,
Tim, are you there?
That would be helpful.
Okay. Your video's frozen, Tim, but we've got your voice, so that's okay. Sorry about that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be a case of of integrating these things.
Right, thank you. So he'll be in touch with you there. Actually, David M0YDH has said that you, Dave, were having a contact with Robin Gett, so he was aware of that, I guess. Rob in Australia says, is the BATC streamer considering SRT or RIST as it's far more superior than RTMP, he says?
I can take that one. Phil, who designs the software for the streamer, has looked at some options. Nothing is suitable. We have found is suitable yet. The difficulty is integrating all the permissions management with everything else. And unfortunately, Phil has been busy on other projects recently, so it's rather nothing has been done recently apart from simple support. But as a long-term project, we are looking to migrate away from RTMP. It's just a matter of finding the right solution that we can implement and integrate with our current solution.